Hey guys, this is a second part, I guess, a little bit more additional thoughts. I don't want to let my ego go too crazy about responding to this, but I think it's at least important enough to make one video or two about a very common claim. Because, all right, let me start off with the definition of nebulous, because my professor called Eastern thought nebulous pantheism. So what is this nebulous thing anyway? Well, it's described as hazy, vague, indistinct, and confused. A nebulous recollection of a meeting, a nebulous distinction between pride and conceit. Cloudy or cloud-like, of or resembling a nebula or nebulae. Nebular. Cloudy, misty, hazy. Of, relating to a characteristic of a nebula. Well, if that's what he thinks Buddhism is, a lot of people do. And to some degree, it's not our problem as much as it is, well, it's tricky. Because a part of me wants to say, look, let's do something about this. Let's sort of clear the name and try to describe it to these people. Let's make Buddhism more mainstream. Damn it. But there's no forcing that. I mean, these people are coming from a wholly different attitude. And if we're gonna try to force it, it's probably not gonna work out right. So I don't know. I guess there really isn't much to do, except on a person-to-person basis where this is described, where this confrontation happens, you know. So the only thing I can recommend really is to tell this person, or whoever you're talking to about this, look, meditation is a way of insight. Choiceless awareness is a way to have insight into things directly. And I guess I related this to somebody once. I said, is it done by inductive and logical reasoning? No. And I'm like, okay, well, just as philosophers of the West, or anywhere really, want to understand something, they think about it, they rationalize it and analyze it, and through that analyzation, they gain some kind of insight or wisdom, some knowledge, right? So through choiceless awareness, another state of openness to knowledge, another kind of knowledge, we can gain a new type of knowledge, a more direct perceiving about the universe and many other things. So, choiceless awareness, mindfulness, and meditation is just another means to understand what is, and perhaps better than, perhaps more directly than non-choiceless awareness. Choice awareness, I guess. The act of will and thought and reason, which is equally a part of us. Um, interestingly enough, I've been reading that B. Alan Wallace book, Contemplative Science, and in the book he's describing how, you know, many people throughout history have not been able to silence the mind. In fact, and I guess this is true. I don't know. I mean, correct me if he's incorrect and for me portraying incorrect information, but in Contemplative Science, he mentions many of the Western mystics. Now, mind you, the Western mystics and their descriptions of their experience with God. To them, it was transient. It was fleeting. In fact, I think Meister Eckhart said, it could only happen the tops 2 to 3 days. You experience this direct communion with God, and then it fades away at a time. Only in the East has there been a method to create a sustained, direct mindfulness that does not fade away so terribly like that. Now, I think there are more natural ways to do this besides meditation. Meditation is in sort of an active thing, but it's learning to be open and passive and letting go and simply being. But I think meditation is probably a very useful tool because it is, for once, an instrument of the inner mind, you know what I mean, of our inner scape, to sort of sit down and just silence the mind a little bit. And if we don't silence the mind, then at least become more attentive with ourselves, which is often not the case, often doesn't happen. So, only in the East, I guess, has meditation been created to such a finely tuned degree. Um, so I definitely recommend it. And I was trying to think, like, what are some other thinkers who didn't quite do what they did, but it happened anyway? Well, there are some people who enlightenment just happens to, just like that. And they don't need to control it or guide it. It doesn't take years, it's instantaneous, or they do it after a few days. That I can't explain. I think that with meditation, like with any kind of science, there's so much diversity as far as people go. People will react so differently, so many things. But generally speaking, we can all find some kind of usefulness through some form of meditation that's been learned. Because it attempts to become more natural and attune with the body and make us more mindful of ourselves. And that's generally a positive thing. Now, it could only take a few months for somebody to achieve a deeper state of mindfulness and a more constant state, as in it doesn't go away even through sleep. Or it may take somebody years, 5 to 7 years, maybe 14. I don't remember what Wilbur mentioned, what the usual date was, the usual time it took. But yeah, like it doesn't matter how long it takes. And there are many different paths, basically. There's no one right way. There are many different ways. So, yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really think there's anything much more to say about nebulous pantheism. Oh, and for those of you, you know what? Nebulous, vague, hopeless, all that other stuff, right? Pantheism, according to dictionary.com, is the doctrine that God is the transcendent reality of which material universe and human beings are not only manifestations. It involves a denial of God's personality and expresses a tendency to identify God and nature. 2. Any religious belief or philosophical doctrine that identifies God with the universe. Now, I like that definition. It's kind of interesting. But there's a better one. Very, 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 very related. Called Pantheism. And this is even better. Is a belief system which posits that God exists and interpenetrates every part of nature and timelessly extends beyond as well. So God is the manifest and unmanifest reality. I like that. If somebody was like, so what are you? I'd be like, well, I wouldn't say I was a panentheist, but it would be a cool definition. I don't like to call myself anything specifically. But yeah, so yeah, thanks for listening, and hope this didn't go too off tangent. We know what nebulous and pantheism means, and I don't think they're necessarily negative. Definitely not vague, especially if you perceive these things directly in your experience. It's not supposed to be analytical. It can be analytical as an afterthought, but remember to always bring attention back to the breath. And yeah, thanks for listening.